Why do you think it's important to surround yourself with people who whose ambition makes you uncomfortable? What happens when you do that?
Well, I personally think a multitude of things happen. I think the first thing that happens is that you become aware that there is a next level to begin with. Because you only know what you know, right? You're only exposed to what you see every day. And it's very personal because it's your world. And then you see stuff on the internet, but that's like another thing, right? Because who knows what's true and who knows who's real and yada yada. And also it doesn't matter because it's not real in your reality. But I think that the next thing that happens after you realize that there is another level is that you get a little uncomfortable and you start asking questions and you become curious and you start reflecting upon yourself and what you do and what you don't do and why you do and why you don't do and what are my excuses and what are my limitations and what beliefs am I telling myself that are actually complete bullshit, and what can I do differently to take myself to the next level? If you're not in that environment at all, you never start asking those questions because you're comfortable in the environment that you're in.
I can say firsthand for me, when I'm around people that are next level at whatever we're talking about here, but if they're just doing something at another higher level than I'm currently at, I have to force myself to be open to just showing up without any preconceived ideas about the situation and being open to the fact that I might learn something and not
Without any
it's
expectations.
yeah, and it's not me, it's almost very humbling to be around people that are on another level without ego, coming as more of a mentee and being open to being mentored. And the beautiful part about it is people might not even realize they are shining light on me, giving me mentorship. They might just be doing, most of the time, they're just doing life and they're just handling situations and people, how they handle life.
Mm-hmm.
And, being around them, sitting at that table, you can witness and see the interactions. And, just examples like being around next level achievers or high level individuals, they ask a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I've noticed is like when I'm around these folks, they're not the ones doing all the talking. And one from the outside, if you didn't know anything, you would think that the person over here doing all the talking and this person sounds like they know what they're talking about. They're actually nowhere near the level of these other folks that seem to be asking you know, the silly questions and the dumb questions. So that's something that I've picked up, over the years, just hanging out with these different individuals and these rare opportunities that you have is like, wow, they ask a lot of questions and they don't come off as knowing everything. They almost have this openness to learning that is next level. It's more about that. Like that's the big thing that I've taken away is like that most of these people that are at another level of success are just perpetual students and they're constantly looking to absorb information and facts about how things are done, and they're just constantly curious
And
and they're
wanting to
always
know, is there a better way to do something? Coaches have coaches. I feel like we, as a society, get everyone up through high school and then college, right? And then, a job, and maybe you learn from there and you grow and you progress in your role at your company or next. But we don't actually encourage coaches or teachers after you're done with high school or college. It's kind of like if you can figure it out and you can be a part of that and you can continue to grow and learn on your own, awesome, great. But otherwise, there's no one like tapping anyone on the shoulder and saying, hey, you can learn so much if you hire a coach, if you follow someone who's giving free advice on YouTube. I mean, especially with the internet, there's so much information available out there for you to discern. And, that's a conversation in and of itself, but it's available. It's just not really encouraged or talked about. So I think we grow up and we think, okay, I'm like done with this learning phase of my life, until the light bulb goes off one day and you're like, as an adult, oh my God, there's so much still left to learn and so many people still left to learn from. And the ones that do it well and the high achievers and the ones that make the most progress and the biggest waves are the ones who say, I need a coach for that. I don't know all of the answers. I'm really good at this, but I lack here and I need someone else to provide guidance who is a professional or who has more experience than I do. So whether it's a therapist or a physical endurance coach or a health and wellness nutrition coach, whatever it is, it's
Financial
available.
coach.
Yeah, right. It's available. It's just not talked about. In fact, I think if I rewind the tape 10 years ago, the way that it was talked about was almost like a negative thing. Like either you need help because you're insufficient or inadequate in some way, or you are hiring someone because who do you think you are? Like, oh, you're going to next level that. Maybe that was just my environment at the time, most likely, but I just don't think it's talked about enough as a benefit. And you're exactly right that when you are surrounded with next level people, there's an awareness that there's something more. There's a lot of curiosity, and there is witness to the fact that those people share that very same curiosity. And no matter what level they're at, there's a next level for them too. And everyone shares
Well,
that too.
and I think that's kind of like my original, question is being around people that are very ambitious. If you're being in your own head too much, that will make you uncomfortable and be judgmental. But if you're open to like paying attention more and learning from that, what happens is if you are lucky enough to be around, people that are just at another level than you, having that mentorship, the next day, a lot of times you feel like, what's wrong with me? I feel pissed off that I'm not like, why aren't I at that level?
Lights
Great
a
example
fire.
for me. Great example is to go see a great musician play, a great band play. It motivates me to get better,
Mm-hmm.
but it could also motivate me to just quit because it's like
Sure.
all of a sudden you look at the deficiency that you have in yourself of like, I want that, and why aren't I at that level? And and I think that the life hack to it is just being able to frame it to use it as fuel to grow with and get used to being uncomfortable and taking your shot and taking someone to lunch that's like next level, like a next level person, and be like, hey, you're doing this the way I would love to do it someday. Would you mind just kind of sharing with me your principles and how you approach business or how you approach this fitness event or whatever to take that knowledge, and it's being humble enough to put yourself in that position of being a less than in that moment on purpose.
Mm-hmm. I A couple of things pop into my mind when you say that. First of all, I think everyone, because it's all relative, has the raging buzzword right now is imposter syndrome. You see it, you hear it everywhere.
Yeah.
I think everyone has it. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are in life or what next level looks like to you. Everyone's human. Everyone is unsure. Everyone has that little voice inside of their head that asks all the questions and then gives you all of the reasons why you're not good enough and what do you have to offer and why are you even here? I mean, who do you think you are? The imposter syndrome is just rampant for everyone. It's just that some people have learned to get a little bit more comfortable with it, understand that it's there, and know what to do with it when it pops up and how to address it as if it's another person. It kind of technically is, right? It's our ego jumping in to protect us. It's scared. And if we can address our ego in that way, we can eliminate a lot of that uncertainty and remind ourselves that everyone has it in the first place. The second thing is about shooting your shot, putting yourself in a position where you ask someone the questions. And that's all relative too. So another big buzz thing is Well, no, you can't pick my brain. It's not free. Well, only, I can see where that can come into play and why that would make sense for some people to say. But I also think that most people are a lot more open to sharing and helping people than people might think. And so instead of sitting scared on the sidelines, it never hurts to ask the question. I mean, one of two things is going to happen. It's going to be ignored or a no, or it's going to be a yes. And then you have the opportunity to learn. If it's ignored or a no, you just maybe change your approach, or maybe shoot your shot with someone else, or look for someone else, to grow and learn from initially, and then adjust your sale, adjust your target at that point. But I don't think it's fair to say, no, you can't pick my brain for free. I think everyone's in a position where they can learn from someone. And most people understand that, especially from the top down, that they want to be able to help people regardless of positioning. Coaches have coaches. I think one of the things that I heard that was like really, I don't know why it was so mind blowing for me, but it was like this idea of not just needing one coach either. We were talking about all the different types of coaches, but like establishing a board of mentors that you look to. So whether they're silent mentors or they're actually people that you hire as coaches, like knowing that one person may not be all that I need. They might fulfill one bucket. They might be a great leader in this area, but there are other areas that I need to fill. And there might be a better person for that I can follow, that I can read about, that I can hire. So, the coach that's going to guide me on how to build my financial portfolio is not the same coach that's going to help tell me what to eat and what's most optimal for me to be, in the best shape of my life. So staying open to the idea that there are multiple people that you can lean into, not just one.
Yes. And also, this is free for anybody out there, is go to your social media feed, whichever you like to use to get your content, whichever you spend your time scrolling on, and groom that to surround yourself with people that make you uncomfortable because they're achieving more than you. So whatever industry it is, whatever your passion is, whatever you're trying to do, go out there and see who's kicking butt at it, and making big waves, and making things happen, and make sure you follow them and start engaging with their content, because that's there's a lot of negative in the world, and like things are just crazy, but there's also a ton of positive that never ever before in human history have we had this much connectivity where we can have access to the thoughts and ideas that are coming out of these great minds of our time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all right there, and it's all for free. And then most of them are also selling coaching packages, and I mean that's so it's just endless opportunity. But I think that the main thing is just for ourselves to first of all get used to and get comfortable with being not being the smartest guy in the room, but
Mm-hmm.
being someone that's surrounded with people that are doing more than us, that are smarter than us, that are better than us, and being comfortable with that. And then don't be afraid to ruthlessly, if you're done with a mentor and you feel like I've got what I need out of this relationship, you don't have to hang on to that out of whatever reason. If you feel like, hey, I've learned what I need to learn here, it's just like social media. You can unfollow and stop engaging. I mean, that it's not like you're trapped here. This should be a revolving uh, board of mentors as you grow and progress. You shouldn't need the same mentor that you did 10 years ago when you're at that level.
Yeah.
It's always leveling up. So
Yeah. So just with the social media feed thing, I think a couple of things on that as you were saying that, immediately like neon flashing bulbs went off for me. Number one is that you're exactly right. You can choose who to follow, what to subscribe to at any given point because it's for you, first and foremost. So it's not for anybody else. It's not to make sure you're liking other people's stuff, an obligation. It's literally for you. And then the algorithm kicks in and starts feeding you more of what you like, right? So we just witnessed that with our daughter. She's going to go on after high school to cosmetology school and entrepreneurial goals of opening her own salon and taking the cosmetology world by storm and doing things, in a youthful, fun, innovative way. and whatever develops from that. So she started following girls that do just that at this time so she can get an idea of exactly what she's going to emulate. And she's learning already, like what I want to do, what I don't. And then she just said the other night, like, well, now my feed's full of cosmetology girls and TikToks of them doing hair. And that's wonderful. That's a positive to the social media aspect and the fact that we can choose and have access to that. The other like neon flashing bulb that went off is that what we have to be aware of in that moment is that it's not a comparison game either. So I think that this
Mm-hmm.
idea of getting comfortable being less than and being, that there are people with bigger ideas and bigger goals in the room. Awesome. Except when we start allowing that to frame the narrative of I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I could never do that. The idea is not to feel that way. The idea is to push yourself not past your comfort level, but and in getting uncomfortable, but to see the possibility and to feel inspired by that. And if you feel less than and you're caught in the comparison game, then that's the cue to unfollow, right? That's the cue that maybe I'm not paying attention to the stuff that I should be paying attention to. If it's making me feel that way, I'm not inspired. I'm
Yeah.
comparing myself and feeling inadequate. So,
Taking an audit too of your social media feed, of your friend circle, of who you're spending all your time with. When you audit that, you can see like this is draining, this is inspiring, this is mediocre, being aware of it. And if there's something like you're saying that's bothering you, be okay asking yourself why, because it might
mhm.
be something that you need to maybe sand up a little bit on yourself and fine tune that your ego's too charged up about some area that you could learn from, but you're kind of shut off from it. So
It often
just
is,
being
right?
open.
It's this idea that like what I say and what I do is for me and what somebody else thinks about it isn't my business. It goes the other way. Like what somebody else says and does is not what how I respond to that or react to that is not their business. That's my business too. I've got to figure out why am I reacting or responding to that in this way. It doesn't have anything to do with them. It's not their business. So it flip-flops. It's easy to see it one way, but it's harder to turn it back on yourself and be like, why does that bother me then? I should feel inspired by that. What is it about this that makes me feel yuck?
I think,
Is it me?
yeah,
What do
yeah,
I need to work on?
yeah. And I think if I look back at my life and think of the times when I felt stagnant and maybe wasn't growing and things weren't happening as quick as I like, I wasn't surrounding myself with people that made me uncomfortable because they were so ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't surrounding myself with that.
Yeah.
And now it's almost like a game that I have to constantly be that once you figure this out that you can learn so much from other people that have done something. Maybe it took them 20 years to figure it out. And then by just going to lunch with them, I can get what I need to push through. We've seen that work in business and arts. I mean, the things that we've done, just taking someone to lunch and saying, here's the things you need to do to open your mortgage company.
Mm-hmm.
Take it from me. I'm 10 years in and I wish I would have done this. And going, we're listening. And
I say
not,
that to
we
our
already know
daughter
everything. We
all the
already know all
time.
that.
I, t-
And
I
that's a
tell
superpower.
I tell her that all the time. Like, if you can learn this now as you're, coming out of high school and becoming a young woman making decisions about your future, you'll be a lot different than I am at 30 and 40. You're ahead of the game. Just be open to the idea that there are people who have some advice that can save you time, that can help you make better decisions, not, business, athletics, parenting, relationships, communication across the board,
It's
it's
uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but you have to understand that it's uncomfortable because of our primitive upbringing. Like we're comfortable being around people that we feel equal to, right? They're part of our tribe. I'm comfortable when everyone's the same. That's easy. It's uncomfortable if someone's way more successful or way more advanced, you immediately, your ego is like trying to protect you.
Hmm.
I mean, that's this my opinion of it. I feel like that's why someone would be closed off is, oh, they got lucky or what, I don't want to,
It
it makes you
stretches you.
uncomfortable. Example, if somebody walked in here right now, completely jacked, six pack, and was like, just let's go lift weights, I'd be like, okay, I'm not there, same thing. Danny Carey walks in and wants me to play drums with him. I'm gonna be like, whoa. But being like, okay,
Yeah.
put the ego aside, put myself in this situation that's way bigger than me
Yeah.
because I know it's gonna make me grow a little bit.
Yeah. Prime example happening right now in real time in our life. We're getting ready to go do something that I've never done before, record music in a studio, not just at home studio, me and you, but like with an engineer in in a pretty big setting. I'm uncomfortable. I have played music my entire life. I can sing. I believe in my ability, but you put me in an atmosphere where I have to do something that in a way that I've never done it before. I've been avoiding it like the plague. It makes me nervous as hell. I'm so nervous that I'm going to show up there and not be good enough. I'm not going to be ready. Who do I think I am? I am not prepared for this. There are people who do this their entire life, and the studio engineer is going to think I'm an idiot and just, yeah, all the way through. I am so uncomfortable, but I know that if I continue to you know, take little steps every day toward getting more comfortable in this position. I'm still going to show up there nervous as hell, but I'm going to be a lot more prepared, and I'm going to grow, and I'm going to stretch, and I'm going to be on the other side of this so proud of what we've come up with, what we've created, what we've done, and also a completely different person in my belief and execution in what I am capable of. From my limited belief of this is how I know how to do music, this is what I do, to okay, now I've done it in a completely different, new, creative way that involved other people, and I'm going to be a completely different person, completely different mindset. But I have to show up every day. I have to have the mindset that like I'm open to learning. I'm open. You go in the studio with me and you can tell when I'm not open to learning. I'm like, I'm doing it this way and I'm mad and I'm angry. It pushes me. It's uncomfortable. But that discomfort becomes a little bit more comfortable. And then there's a new discomfort if you continue, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think the real mindset to have is I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn. So I can't lose. I'm not going to lose. So it's either going to work or it's not. And then I'm going to figure out why. And then I'm going to come back in again and try it again.
Can you think of an
And
example of like something that you've experienced in the past, or something, where you showed up with that mentality and maybe you didn't win, and how you were able to like take the negative feeling of not winning and turn it into a learning experience and feel great about it?
um, I would say the biggest, most impactful example of that was uh, many, many years ago. We tried to start a mortgage company and we didn't really understand the big picture of relationships, and we didn't have the confidence and track record ourselves to know that we could deliver a product to the market that real estate agents and consumers wanted and needed. Uh, we through our own insecurity and our own lack of understanding and our own confidence, we we tried to go the route of buying internet leads and trying we went at it
Transactional.
transactionally when we should have went at it relationships. We should have been getting to know our real estate community inside and out, knowing who are the big players, who do we need to talk to, who's doing business, and what can we do to help them with their clients. Simple, simple, simple stuff. But at that time in our lives, we weren't able to do that. We weren't there yet.
Mm-mm.
And then we got thrown off that horse, so we lost. And we took it as, all right, and then I went and worked at a bank, and you went and worked. So we just kind of picked up the pieces and moved on. And then we moved to Florida, and it was like, we're starting over. Let's do this ourselves. Let's do it ourselves. And it was big and scary at that time. A lot of balls up in the air, of course. But this time around, through confidence and having more knowledge about how it works, through having mentors that had shown us different ways that it can work that process, we were able to attack it from the let's go out and build relationships.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were listening to all these podcasts and YouTube channels of people that were really successful. And every day when we went to the gym or driving in the car, just filling your head with that kind of message, that content, those tips, and reading books and picking up things. So it was kind of like an all in full court press on educating ourselves to build that confidence. And we were dedicated to that, dedicated to full immersion, getting into it. And then also having people in our life that we took to lunch, and having like real life people to ask questions, and like, how do we do that? And all of that happened very quickly in a small condensed amount of time. But luckily, fast forward the tape, we were able to build our business up the right way, that is more of a gardening approach through relationships and taking care of people and doing what you say you're going to do time and time again. And from there, it does work. It's less transactional and more, holistic approach to business.
So the time you were talking about before, real estate related, was in the '08, economic crash. And because it was transactional and it wasn't built on a solid foundation, we weren't able to sustain. So we went back to work and we started learning about building relationships. We started learning and picking up from the right people. We moved to Florida. We started self-educating. And then the gardening technique that you're speaking of is right now, when we're in a position where, the real estate market's a mess again, and, the economy and the stock market and all of that conversation is happening, we're not feeling the amount of stress and the amount of tension and the amount of severity associated with that like we did in '08, because we have maintained and gardened and built the relationships in the right way. And that came from educating ourselves. That came from learning, like you said, win or learn. We didn't win. That wasn't a win in '08, but we didn't just say never again. We didn't even know, but we went back to the drawing board and started absorbing all of this stuff and learning and keeping it in. We're learning. And then we were ready. And it was the ability to pivot. It was the ability to say, like, that didn't work then. If we're going to do this now, we have to do it differently. And what have we learned that's a more sustainable, scalable growth plan, as opposed to the way that we did it when we didn't know any other way than just transactional. And in that time, we didn't have anyone we could ask, or we weren't educating ourselves in that area. We weren't seeking out coaches or trying to absorb information from other people who have done it or done it better than we have. We were just like, let's go. And it just didn't work for that reason. Yeah, that's a great example.
So I think the lesson, it's like the big long-term example, and I'm sure there's shorter term examples, but like that one's the one that's like the most impactful, that over the years after we failed, and then we tried again, that we weren't afraid to try again. That's another big important piece, is like, we're doing this again, but this time it's different. But not being scared to give it another shot, keep trying, keep getting back in the batter's box and swinging, because how many more sales happen after you make that one extra phone call, that you were like, I'll quit, but I'll just call two more and just see what happens, and boom, so.
And that's not just applicable to business. That's also with music, for example, or with some type of athletic endeavor, or with standing in the batter's box time and time again with your approach to your children or your marriage or your relationship. It's just across the board, that idea that I've got to be willing to be open to a better way and to stepping up to the plate again because I've learned something new. I heard
Yeah.
someone say, I don't know if I saw it on Instagram or heard someone say it, but that failures, if we replace the word failure with attempt, it feels so much better. And so I've been
Mhm.
trying to reposition that in my own mind that like it isn't success or failure. It's I attempted. And then
Mhm.
if it wasn't so great, I attempted again and I attempted again and then succeed. It's not attempt, succeed, or fail. It's just attempt, attempt, attempt. And I thought that
Yeah.
was really nice because it takes the negative pressure and connotation out of that situation where it doesn't make it definitive because
Yeah.
it's just not definitive. And the other thing that comes into my mind when I talk about that is that like there's so much information out there and so many examples and not all of it has to be true, like
Yeah.
that's a whole other conversation, but it's the discernment in that moment of like where you are in your life and what you need and what you can take from it and what you don't need from it when you're
Yeah.
on this learning journey. Not all help is helpful, right? Somebody might have the best intentions, but if you're not at that space where you need that message, it's not going to be helpful. So
Yeah.
it's the ability to kind of that openness and understanding of yourself first to know what to do with it, how to make the changes, how to pivot, and how to step up and keep swinging. And the
Yeah.
coaches that you need, that revolving door, and always taking an inventory of who's there.